Have you ever wanted to build a turbo manifold? Well, that's exactly what I'm about to do with my Turboed RX-8. So stay tuned because I'm going to show you all the problems I encountered with building this thing and how I overcome them. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name's Josh Cav, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. Lately guys, I've been working on my RX-8, which is a heavily modified REW swapped RX-8. It's bridge ported. It's got a straight cut gear set which allows me to do this. A couple of the other mods include a studded block. We're running a G35 1050R turbo, which we're actually going to be swapping out for another Pulsar turbo, which I have to say I'm very impressed with the Pulsar turbos thus far. They have basically taken everything I've thrown at this thing, and I'm talking I punished this turbo hardcore. So I've opted again for another Pulsar turbo, and because we're going such a bigger turbo, which is it's a 62mm dual ball bearing 900 horsepower setup, it's also running the T51R mod, which will give it a nice whistle sound in combination with the straight gut gear set wind, which will be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to see how that goes. However, because it is a bigger turbo, one of the things that I do want to mitigate is the turbo lag. So in this episode, we're going to be building the exhaust manifold, and one of the things that I'm going to be trying to reduce as much as possible in the design of this thing is the turbo lag. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to reduce my runner lengths. I'm going to keep them equal, so between 100 to 150 mil long runners, they're going to be equal length. And when they go into the collector, I'm going to somehow incorporate a Venturi system to increase velocity, and yeah, just try and in general reduce turbo lag with this setup. So I'm going to show you all the challenges that I face with doing this and how I overcome them. Anyone who's watching, if you've done anything similar in the past or you've thought about it, please write it in the comments and let me know. I'd love to hear the challenges you faced on your project. So without further ado, I'm going to get stuck into this manifold because I really want to get this car back on the road and have some fun with it. I'm really looking forward to see how the turbo responds compared to the old one. The old one used to kick in at around about 3,500 and it'd be at full boost by around about 4,000 to 4,500. So it's going to be interesting to see how this turbo responds and how it all goes really. The engine is bridge ported, as I showed you before. It's also studded, and I have modified the exhaust ports to open it up for a higher flow at higher RPMs. So that does kind of take a bit of low down torque power out of the motor, but I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm more interested in the sound and the top end power. So let's get stuck into this video and build this manifold. Okay guys, so pretty big milestone reached. I've now basically finished the entire section inside the engine bay right up to the back of the back of the engine, I should say. So the rest, all that we have to do now is go under the car and through to the back, which I'm going to do last. I think the next thing I'm going to focus on is basically just getting this whole engine bay back together and nepped up as best I can. And then I'll move on to underneath the car and getting all that on. So the first step is I'm gonna have to pull everything that I've just built off, get it wrapped, and then put it all back on. Now, I'll show you what I've done. So there is the 3.5 inch dump going down back under there. I will have to bend this brake line somewhat out of the way. The wastegate is on the front here. So as you can see, we got the two runners that come up into a 90, straight into the turbo. The wastegate's right there on the 90, so it should be really responsive. It bends back around, goes through into a flexi, and then back into the dump pipe. Now, again, this whole setup has been designed with one key point in mind, and that is to reduce turbo lag. So I didn't think I was going to be able to design it as good as I did. I know if you've looked closely at the weldings or the welds that I've done, some of them are not too neat, but they are strong welds. And not only that, each piece that I welded on, I port matched with a die grinder as I built the tube. So inside it's polished perfectly round all the way through to the turbo, as well as the dump pipe. So every single piece of this exhaust will flow beautifully. I'm not really too concerned about the welding. Reason being why is all this is getting wrapped. Now, I opted not to do stainless steel because wrapping stainless steel apparently doesn't last as long as normal mild steel. So I welded all this up basically with just the MIG welder. So that's why it's not as neat as you can get it with a TIG, but in the grand scheme of things, as long as the weld holds strong, I'm not really too concerned because it's going to be covered anyway. So next job is rip all of this stuff back off, give it a good clean. We're going to wrap it all and then bolt it all on for its final assembly onto the engine, and then move on with this build. Okay guys, it's the moment of truth. I have finished basically doing all the engine work, so I still got to finish the exhaust underneath from basically the side of the gearbox all the way to the back of the car, but I've reached a bit of a milestone, so we're now ready to start the engine. I just want to bring the engine up to temp and yeah, basically let it start, let it idle, bring it up to temperature. I've put oil in it. I've wound the motor over and I now have oil pressure. I've checked all oil levels, I've checked coolant levels, there's nothing leaking. So we're pretty much ready to fire this puppy up. One thing I did check when I put it all together was the injectors. I checked all my injectors to test to make sure that they were all firing. One of them wasn't firing, and this is kind of common for some of it's been running E85 and then sitting. It got a little bit stuck, so I was able to unstuck it just by tapping it slightly around and continually firing the injector, and eventually it's come good. So I think it'll be fine, but I'll have to keep an eye on that with the AFR when we are road tuning this thing. So I believe we are ready to fire this thing up. I got one little airline off here which I want to block off, and I want it to idle nicely, so I want to block that off first, and then we'll be good to fire this puppy up. Alright, I believe we are good to go. Alright, let's hop in the car, and I just gotta move this piece over here. Oh man, alright. Clutch in. I'll wait for the dash to come up. And let's do it. It's gonna be loud. That's normal. Got a lot of stuff in the exhaust. Alright, so to cut a long story short, something's wrong with the motor and she's got to come out. So I'm not 100% sure why, but I have very low compression, and I believe it's from the corner seals that I've used, which were at the Atkins rotary corner seals. I've read online to a few different places people having problems with the seals having low compression after the build's been done, which is really weird because I've used them before in other engines and they have worked. They do take a little bit longer to bed in and the compression to bump up slightly, but in this case I can't start it off the key. It does start if I put a bit of oil down the guts of it, it will fire up, but it just will not fire from the key. So the engine's got to come out, we've got to pull it all apart. I'm going to put fresh Mazda corner seals in, and this is the last time I ever used the Atkins rotary corner seals in an engine build. So bit of a bummer. I'm sorry I didn't get to show you it ripping down the streets in this episode, but my next episode will be obviously ripping this thing out, finding out what has actually gone wrong, and then correct it and get it back in and get it going. And then we'll move back on to the Supra after that. So that'll be it for this episode, guys. Sorry it's a short one and it's a bit of a bummer too. I was really keen to get this out on the road and have some fun. I did actually go for a little drive in it on one of the days, just trying to see if I could bed the seals in. And the engine actually died on me on the road, and I had to get a tow truck and well, we actually towed it back here because the tow truck drivers around Cairns wanted to absolutely rip people off with the prices of towing from just going 5 minutes down the road. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I've got it back here. We're going to pull the engine out. Thanks everybody for watching so far. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Really helps me out. Sorry it took me so long to get this video out, but I have been trying to problem solve this thing without pulling the engine out, and it's just got to the point where it's got to come out. There's no getting around it. So I'm going to rip it out today and see what's wrong with it. So cheers for watching, guys. We'll see you for the next one.